All right. All right. Welcome, everybody, to our October Pram Central chapter meeting. I'm Matt Westerfield, this year's chapter president. Hope everybody's doing well and staying safe. Getting ready for Halloween this weekend. Usually in October, we have our special membership drive meeting, but we're going to do things a little differently this year. And later on in this meeting, we'll tell you a little bit about what's going to happen in November. That will be really interesting. We have a few announcements to make before today's speakers and a few after today's speakers. So I want to keep my comments brief, but I do want to mention that we'll be sending out a constant contact email this afternoon asking you to nominate any of your fellow Pram Central colleagues for the 2021 Outstanding Professionals of the Year program. To nominate somebody, all you have to do is email me their name and preferably their place of employment. And all of those who are nominated will then be asked to complete applications, which will then be evaluated by a panel of judges. And then the winners will be recognized at our January chapter meeting. You can nominate one person for each of three categories: Emerging Practitioner Award, and Advanced Practitioner Award. So the email this afternoon will have more information about those categories and the judging criteria. But the deadline to send us those nominations will be Friday, November 12th. So be on the lookout for that email and send us some names. And because we want to showcase the great work that our members are doing. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Jean Cook, our Vice President of Membership, to recognize any new members. Jean?
Okay, thank you. So we've had 3 new members who joined since our last meeting. They're all students from Mississippi College. I don't see their names here unless the iPhone is one of them. Danielle Brown, Eric Lichterman, and Gracie Lee. So we have a lot of students who have joined in the last couple months. So we're happy to have them. And that's it.
Cool. Thank you. So Bill was going to share some info, but he's going to wait and do that after our speakers. So I'll go to Sophie, our Vice President of Programs, to introduce today's speakers.
Thanks, Matt. We actually have 2 speakers here today, which you can see in the screen, and I'm excited to have them here. So one of the things that we had talked about for the fall, which of course the Delta gave us a blow, and so we've done things a little bit differently, was talking about the future of communications. And of course we had the talk I did on integrated marketing communications, and then in September we continued that with Laura Johns, and she furthered that conversation, and this is kind of the next step in that, and is seeing what is happening here in Jackson as far as that future of communications and how that looks through place here. And so I'm really excited to have Travis and Salam with us. So I'll introduce them and get started. If you have questions, put them in the chat. I know it can be difficult while they're screen sharing to see, so I will help with asking questions along the way, but of course we'll have questions at the end. And here we go with some introductions. Travis Crabtree is the creative director and co-founder of Carbon Office and Ecoshed. His background is interdisciplinary, ranging in urban design, green infrastructure, geographical analysis, development planning, and environmental sustainability. Prior to forming Carbon Office, he helped establish the long-range planning team at the City of Jackson Planning Department. While at the department, he led notable projects like ONELINE, Multi-Modal Corridor, the JTRAN Rebrand, the Downtown Design Dialogue, Parking Day 2018, 2019, and the Fertile Ground Project. He co-authored a grant supported by Bloomberg Philanthropies Public Art Challenge titled the Fertile Ground Project, a citywide public art initiative that uses art to discuss food access in Mississippi. Crabtree started his urban design research career under Geoffrey Thün and Kathy Velikov at RVTR. Travis received his Master of Urban Design from the University of Michigan and a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture from Mississippi State University. We also have with us Salam, and she is the operations director and co-founder of Carbon Office and Ecoshed. Her strengths range in public art and design, technical urbanism, digital fabrication, and public programming. She's assisted in the curation of several major art exhibitions, including the 2017 Saint Etienne Design Biennale in France, and the 2016 Venice Biennale in Italy, and the 2015 Chicago Biennial. Prior to forming Carbon Office, she helped establish the long-range planning team at the City of Jackson Planning Department. And while there, she led notable projects like the ONELINE Multi-Modal Corridor, the JTRAN Rebrand, the Downtown Design Dialogue, Parking Day 2018-2019, and the Fertile Ground Project. Salam received her Master of Architecture degree from the University of Michigan and her Bachelor of Arts in Sociology and Urban Studies from the University of Michigan. So we're glad to have them today.
Thanks for having us. Clearly, my partner Travis and I work together on a lot of projects, so our introductions sound very similar. We work together in a lot of different capacities. So Travis and I are going to share our screen, and we're going to go into presentation mode. Thank you, Sophie, for that introduction.
You're welcome.
Okay, can everybody see my screen? So we're going to go through just a little bit behind Travis and I's practice called Carbon Office. And we're going to do a deep dive into two very specific projects, the Ecoshed and the Fertile Ground project. But we'll also be showing some of our other work as well through our websites that we manage and through this presentation. So go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, so like Sophie mentioned, we both have a design background and in architecture, urban design, and landscape architecture, but we really work sort of within the interdisciplinary design space. But our practices really and our projects really focus on projects that are really embodying sort of social, economic, and environmental values and trying to just form a better experience and quality of life for the projects that we are working on and the spaces that we are working in. We primarily work within Jackson, Mississippi. That's sort of been like our project is to really focus on one place and to really try to put a lot of energy into a place like Jackson. But the scale that we work at ranges from rethinking, an entire urban metropolitan area and the connectivity of that, and redesigning transportation systems, all the way down to rethinking a parking space and how a parking space could become a place for people. We've worked both on public and private projects. We have worked in the private sector and the public sector. Carbon Office is a private business, an LLC. But we have worked for the City of Jackson Planning Department and for universities. So here we are in Jackson, Mississippi, where we're mostly working. This just shows you sort of a timeline of Carbon Office over the past 4 years and how we've been working. Over the past 4 years, we've been working on this project called the Ecoshed, which is a mixed-use incubator space that is west of Fondren in Jackson, Mississippi. 1 second, guys. Salam, can you take this over real quick? I just need to mention something. I'm sorry.
Sorry, we have a salon being designed, and this is the worst time, but we're getting the mirrors installed for the salon. So Travis is going to go deal with that. So as you see here in this timeline, like Travis was mentioning, we've worked in both public and private sectors, Carbon Office being our private entity, Ecoshed being a private entity, and then working for the public sector with the City of Jackson Long Range Planning Department, which was really just like a really great way to get to know the City of Jackson and really understand the place we were situated in. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, so being able to move to Jackson and to really kind of see and understand kind of why the city is the way that it is and what opportunities are available and what the city kind of needs to work on in terms of its long-term vision was critical. For a really long time at the City of Jackson, there wasn't really a planning department that focused on sustainable design projects. It was mostly a lot of regulatory work. But luckily, when we were working there, we were able to establish a division that focused on more long-term planning. And that's what the current director, Jordan Hillman, is also doing with the new staff that they've hired in our place. And then during our time at the City of Jackson, we led the Fertile Ground Project, which is a public art project that's funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies, where we worked with various artists across the City of Jackson. And we'll do a deeper dive into that through this presentation. So at Carbon Office, we work on different spectrums of work. I know from a public relations standpoint, we use images very, very, very much in our work. We use social media and marketing a lot in the work that we do. A lot of the work that we do intersects those disciplines, a lot of the same work that you all do. And we partner with different institutions or different organizations that can help with that work. So Carbon Office, to an extent, does some brand identity and some marketing work, but we also work with partners around that as well to promote the work. So as a architect, as a student of architecture, our work spans from urban design, like Travis said, all the way down to brand development, like what a JTRAN design could look like and how that impacts the city and how that impacts the way that people see the transportation, the perceptions of transportation. So identity is a really big part of that. Okay. So the Ecoshed this is an older image. I think this image was taken in spring of this year. The Ecoshed is a mixed-use incubator space located in Industry Park, which is an industrial park in between Fondren, Midtown, and the Verdon Addition. We are surrounded by CN Railroad, different industrial businesses, and then this mixed-use incubator space is kind of in the center of it. So the Ecoshed is trying to do a lot of different things. One of the things that the building is trying to promote is sustainability design practices and bridging community, bringing communities together, both the creative disciplines and the green infrastructure disciplines. So this is our atrium space. This is where hopefully you all will be next month during the Pram happy hour. Sophie, I don't know if that's like public or if people know about that. But so this is a very open, airy space where people can gather. COVID has really influenced our design pillars even further. We already had designed this space to be open and airy, and to have plants in it, but really the health aspect of it became even more poignant during COVID. And really helped us pick things like furniture, like all of our furniture is metal. All of our seats can be wiped down. We tried to stay away from fabrics. We tried to integrate more plants for like cleaning the air, high ceilings for moving airflow, being able to design the building in a passive way so that you would get ambient light in and just be able to open the doors without having all of this heat come in from the sun. So the building is very intentionally designed. And then it is very intentional about community building too. So one of the things that we do is we work with a lot of different artists, creatives, designers, people who are in tech. And we have a co-working membership structure that is fairly affordable. So for $35 a month for students, you can get a pass. And then for month to month non-students, it ranges between 50 and 75. So we definitely want to make sure that this space is accessible and open to people at sliding scales. We also have private office areas where people can rent the space, who want longer times for working, who want more of a private area for working. We have a lot of freelancers who work after 5 p.m. in this space. We have people who have left, who are currently in retirement, but don't ever want to stop working, who are in this space as well, who just want a place to work outside of home. And as I mentioned earlier, the way that this building is designed is thinking about all of these different programs. This building was entirely privately funded, so we didn't receive any bank funding. We have several different investors that have helped us design or help us make this project a reality. But because of that, we had to make sure that the space was flexible enough depending on what markets were to help us understand what markets were working, what markets weren't working here, and to allow the space to be flexible enough to punt and pivot depending on what we were interested, what the market was interested in doing. So as of right now, our main focus has been co-working and events. That seems to be like the most profitable and most marketable part of the building. We do also have an urban farm on site, composting on site, and this drone image doesn't show it right now, but we also have a new greenhouses back here because of our green operations have really expanded. Throughout this process so far in the 6 months that we've been open, we've been able to help start 9 different businesses, including the salon that Travis had to go deal with. And so that's been a really great opportunity to help these businesses kind of build themselves from the ground up, and then also help build their brand identities around this project. So the space works very symbiotically. People have to work collaboratively, not only because we kind of all overlap in what we're doing in terms of being creatives or being in the green industry, but also because the space requires you to be collaborative too. There's a lot of open space. There's a lot of opportunity for people to learn about what other people are doing. And then there's natural kind of collaboration that comes out of that. A lot of people have been able to network in ways that we've never seen before, but I really do think that the space is a major component of that design. And I'm currently sitting actually in our courtyard space, which is located right here. So we have a courtyard, we have an atrium space, which is right here that we were looking at. There's a shared kitchen for our food lab membership. So another thing that we do is we have memberships specifically designed for people who are interested in starting their own catering companies, like Chef Philip, who does gumbo and caters weddings, all the way to Miss T's Sweets and Treats, who sells jams and jellies at the local farmers market and direct to consumer. So there's a lot of different types of businesses that exist in the food lab, and similar to the co-working spaces in the atrium and in the private areas, those rates are flexible depending on people's needs. So we go anywhere from $300 a month for people who are expanding outside of the cottage food law, all the way up to $1,000 a month, depending on how many hours people need each week. So like I said, the EcoShed is trying to demonstrate sustainability in a lot of different ways. So these are signs and educational tools that we have throughout the building. One of the hurdles that we have to jump over within Jackson and Mississippi is kind of trying to reorient ourselves around how vacant land can be seen. There's a lot of vacant land around the city of Jackson, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity for more spaces like this to exist. So we have these signs that I'm showing you kind of laid out all throughout the building to help educate people on just like why certain design choices were made and how they are an active participant in that design choice. So this is a breakdown that talks about food and how food works on the site. We try as much as we can at the EcoShed Cafe to use the produce that's grown at the farm within our food, and really kind of driving that hyper-local economy so that we're all like benefiting each other in some kind of capacity. And so this is kind of an illustration that shows how that's functioning on site. The food lab, this is an illustration that kind of talks about how many local restaurants are around the area and how many of those have opportunities to kind of either work within the building or be connected to the farm in some capacity. So we're always thinking about how we can connect different institutions, businesses to the EcoShed in different ways. So thank you again so much for inviting us to this, because these types of conversations are really important. And so I'm really happy to be able to present that to Pram. Water. So water is another really important sustainability factor at the EcoShed. As we all know, the city of Jackson suffers from significant flooding, flash flooding specifically. And one of the things that we do at the EcoShed is we collect all of our stormwater on site and ship it to this cistern. I don't know if you can see that blue thing in the back. That really helps collect all of our stormwater on site. And then that's how we water all of our plants inside the building. And then also how we create the pond in the back. So we have a small constructed wetland right here that we've been able to really kind of beautify the cross streets that we're located on, which is Mitchell and Commerce. And we have just like a small constructed wetland. There's frogs in there, there's snakes in there. We were able to kind of really revitalize a native habitat that had just been kind of a soil mound for a very long time. Something that we're really interested in is being able to figure out how we can collect our own stormwater and then turn it into drinking water. So that's something that we hope to create down the line. But being able to collect it off of our roof line is kind of like the first step in that process. Energy. So energy is, again, another phase of our work that has yet to be developed at the Ecoshed, but it's something that we're looking into, which are solar panels. We just actually met a new co-working member who's starting a new solar company here, and they're interested in using the Ecoshed as a demonstration building for their product. And so we're actually getting a quote from them to see how much it would cost us to put their solar panels on our building and go from there. But the building is designed in a really passive way. Like, for example, our doors are completely open here, and it's 69 degrees inside the building. It's super comfortable. And so we don't even really need to have the AC on right now, which is nice. And that really reduces our energy costs. And then our waste collection. Waste is another part of the building that is significant. We have a cafe on site, we have food lab members, so we're all generating waste in different ways. So we do work with a composter named Matt Castile on site, who owns a company called Wormworks, and they collect all of our compost and utilize it to create soil that the farm then uses to grow food, the food that we eat. So, it's all just one big closed loop system. So that was some background on the Ecoshed. Sophie, is it okay if I do you want me to wait to take questions till the end?
Yeah, let's wait. I don't see anything popping up just yet in the chat, so keep going.
Okay, good. And so at Carbon Office, another project that we work on is the Museum Trail, which is a new multi-use trail on the backside of the Bellhaven neighborhood. As of right now, that's currently the phase 1 of the project. But we are entering into phase 2 of the project, which is taking the trail from the I-55 bridge past the museums and then hitting Lakeland Drive. I think that the current name for this area is Museum Drive. And so you have the LaFleurs Museum District right here. So this is currently the phase that they're working on. This first phase is completed. So Carbon Office's work in this is we've been able to help brand the identity of the museum trail, and are also working on creating signage and public art installations along this trail, which we're working on, and hopefully will be installed in November of this year. So keep an eye out for that. You can follow the Museum Trail Instagram to kind of learn more about the work that's going on and how to be involved. We're always looking for donations or different in-kind organizations to work on the projects that, that are going to be happening along the trail. The full ambition of the trail is to go from the district all the way to the art museums, where it will then, at the art museum, hopefully connect to another trail system that the city of Jackson is working on that takes it from the art museum all the way to Jackson State University. So that is a trail system that the city is working on. But this is just, one component of a larger trail system that the city is working on. And this is funded through the Jackson Heart Foundation and contributions from philanthropic people from across the state. So this design package is also hopefully acting as a way to receive more donations from local community members, but also from our legislature as well. And as you know, the museum trail is a very important part of our city because it touches on so many of our museum institutions. So this is a destination map that kind of talks about what institutions touch the trail and how this trail serves as a connector between all of these places. And then we've also done kind of like a programmatic layout that helps people understand what types of programs could happen around the trail. Sometimes with some of the work that Travis and I do at Carbon Office, it's really important to create these diagrams because it helps people kind of understand, well, this vacant land can actually be a really great place for murals or biking or a rain garden or all these different ways. So being able to create images to communicate that is really important. This diagram is broken into five different categories: mobility, recreation, commercial, cultural, and nature. And so this is just like a proposed idea of what this trail could look like over the next couple of years if funding were to be, possible. So the first phase of implementation that we're working on right now, we've received a grant through ARP. It's a $20,000 grant, so it's not a lot of money, but it's better than nothing. And we're using small interventions like paint to create kind of a brand identity for the trail that becomes recognizable. One of the most important questions that I get from people all the time is, where's the trail? Where does it start? How do I get to it? We designed the website, and we've also been designing these assets that will help communicate kind of like what the place is, how you're in the right place, and then signage to continue to educate people on like what's happening and how to get people involved in the project. So this is just a rendering of what we're proposing for that area. Other work that we've done is that Sophie mentioned during the introduction is the Congress Street Parklet downtown. This is another placemaking project that that was low budget, high impact. This is also an ARP grant. We received $15,000 to do this one. Parking Day, another community project that helps placemaking happen. This was 2019. And then the Fertile Ground Project, which is the public art grant that we worked on. So the food access project was important because when we started working at the city, one of the things that we really got into was GIS and data mapping, and really being able to kind of like target, what are some of the largest issues that the city of Jackson is dealing with, and how can the city be like an accelerator to help deal with these issues or to even bring it up. So this public art project was awarded to the city of Jackson as a way to start dialogue around this issue. It's a public art project, so obviously, the long-term goal is to just kind of create a sense of awareness around this topic using public art as a medium to have these conversations. And then we hope that these cultural assets will eventually create capital production projects along the corridors in which some of these art installations have been put. So there are several different art projects that are located all across the city of Jackson. There's about 13 different sites, and we worked with over 50 different artists to work on these sites. One of the more successful projects that we worked on will be shown. So Common Ground, which is a tactical urbanism project where we imposed a grid. This is 8 by 8 foot grid. And this was a COVID-19 public art response project, in the sense that, we were originally supposed to have a whole event, like a whole series of workshops dedicated to the Fertile Ground project in April of 2020. But of course, in March of 2020, the whole world turned upside down due to COVID-19. And so we were not able to have our Fertile Ground Expo, which was 30 events situated across all of our different sites, to talk about the food access issues through dialogues, through film, through dance interventions, through artists speaking about their work and what food access means to them across the city of Jackson. And so this is a project that came out of the struggle of dealing with being at home, not being able to go inside of restaurants, not being able to see our friends. Artists all across the city lost commission in different capacities due to COVID-19 and not being able to find work. So we created a mural series, and this was one of the murals that came out of it, that just kind of is about like taking an active role in trying to get people to gather safely, to get artists to get work, and to also kind of have a larger conversation about how cities play a large role in public health and both mental and physical health. So that was kind of the goal behind this Common Ground mural.
And Salam, would you talk a little bit about the grid so people can understand what they represent?
Yeah, so I can't remember, but each one of these like symbols represent, like the artist could probably speak to it a little bit better, but they represent something. But the grid itself is each box is 8 by 8 feet. So remember when we all had to stay 6 feet apart at one time, and still to this day, some of us are still practicing social distancing. And so the idea was that you can go with your COVID pod into an 8 by 8 foot grid, and people were safely able to understand, well, this is like an approximate and appropriate distance for us to still be around each other, but then still feel safe around being outdoors. And obviously this came out in May of 2020. So we still didn't really entirely understand what COVID was at that time, or how it was transmitted. So this was just kind of a precaution. This was a public art precaution, the grid, but really I think it's beautiful. I love the fact that the grid is visible, because most times when artists do this type of work, they do create a grid, but then they remove the grid. But I like that we kept it, and it was used as a safety measure. This is an image from the event in Fondren. It was curated by the Fondren Renaissance Foundation. And then there were several other murals that were created across the city of Jackson to kind of communicate this issue. This project is one of my favorites. This is at Galloway Elementary. So another part of the Fertile Ground project is that we were very intentional about several of our sites, in the sense that they were either located in food swamps or food corridors that were divested from, so neighborhoods within the city who hadn't received investment in previous years. And so we were really interested in making sure that the public art was located there instead of locating them in the obvious places that we see within our cities. So it's really beautiful to be driving down Bailey Avenue and to come across this mural that the kids at Galloway Elementary, which is a JPS school, helped design. We did a session with them where we participated in a charrette, where we asked questions like, what do you like to eat? What does your community mean to you? What food do you feel like sometimes? And through this process, we were able to engage with the children and work with them, and our artists at A+ Signs were able to kind of be there as well to talk specifically to the kids, to get more insight from them, to talk to their parents. And so this was done at Galloway Elementary's Back to School event that was hosted in August of 2019. And the mural went up in November of 2019. So this was like a really great project, in the sense that we were able to involve the children, and they really helped us understand this final image collectively. And we worked primarily with 4th and 5th graders. Other public art murals that exist across the city includes Mama Rose Kitchen, which is a mural done by Adrienne Dominic that talks about the legacy of her grandmother, who used to actually live on Ferris Street, who had an urban farm before it was cool. She had a plot of land on Fair Street, and she grew her own vegetables, made her own jams and jellies, cooked every day, on top of being a landlord. And so this mural means a lot to Adrienne, in the sense that she was able to depict her grandmother, her aunt, her mother, and herself within this image, and to have it on the street that her grandmother grew up on. And that she remembers spending time with her aunt. This is located at the Fair Street Courtyard, which is on the corner of Amit and Farish. This is another one of those sites where we're hoping that by doing some kind of catalytic intervention, like a public art mural, even though it's small in its scale, makes a significant impact and draws attention to that area in different capacities. And hopefully we can see what that means in the next couple of years. This is a mural completed at Bottom Gardens, which is on the west side of Jackson. This is across the street from Lake Elementary, another JPS school, at a community garden that was built with Revitalize Mississippi and the Bottom Garden neighborhood and Lake Elementary and Footprint Farms. And so this project is really trying to celebrate a line from Dr. Cindy Ayers, which is "We are the seeds of change." It's something that she says a lot when she talks about food access issues. And so this is something that's kind of celebrating her and celebrating the message. And this mural was done by Ricardo Moody, who is a teacher, a high school art teacher in Hattiesburg, who these were also selected out of a competition. So we held a mural competition. So that was kind of how some of this public art was selected, is through a neighborhood. We were able to gather with different community members in the site selected public art spaces, and they were judging a series of murals that were submitted during COVID-19 as a COVID-19 art response. So this was one of those murals that were selected from that process. Another mural that was selected from this process is Reach by Lucy Cooper and Ava Davis. It is a mural that talks about how accessible food is, symbolizing like hands reaching out over a table, different colors, different items. This is the Wildcat mural at Belhaven Heights Park. It's painted on a shipping container so that it could be transported if it didn't need to be on, just so that it doesn't have to be on like a specific surface. And the shipping container is now also used for storage for markets at Belhaven Heights Park. So this site has been transformed recently. We were able to host and collaborate with Magnolia Sunset Market, which is a local group of women who organize markets primarily with Black entrepreneurs across the city of Jackson. And it's a really beautiful space if you haven't checked it out, Belhaven Heights Park. And this is a catfish mural symbolizing one of our largest agricultural exports. This mural is by Sabrina Howard, Sowing Seeds of Love. This was selected by JSU's Blackburn Elementary Learning Garden liaison, Heather Wilcox. And this mural represents the children that's connected to the site. This is right next to Blackburn. And there's a learning garden actually situated right next to it. So this is like a really beautiful mural on the JSU Parkway if you ever get a moment to drive past it. And then outside of murals, we also do, we've also been able to create different gardens across the city. This one is located at Smith Park, right on Capitol and Amit. If you have time to drive past it, this is when we were growing sunflowers a few years ago. We have also designed a learning garden at Galloway Elementary with Mississippi State's Architecture, Landscape Architecture, and Graphic Design School. This learning garden, I have some updated photos of it that's not in this slide, but if you go on our website, you can learn more about this learning garden. It's received several different community grant awards and landscape architecture awards for its design. And it has some of the first 3D printed concrete within the state of Mississippi, which is really cool too. And so, yeah. That is my presentation around the work that we do at Carbon Office, specifically around Ecoshed and the Fertile Ground Project. And I did touch on the museum trail as well, which is a project of the moment for us. And then again, if you all wanted to learn more and go deeper into some of this work, we have websites for each of them. So Ecoshed has its own website. EcoShedJXN.com. Fertile Ground has its own website, fertilegroundjxn.com. And then to look more into Carbon Office's work, we have our own website as well, carbonoffice.net. So those are the three main areas. Oh, and if you want to learn more about the museum trail, it's themuseumtrail.com too. So those are all different sites that you could do more of a deep dive into. But at the end of the day, a lot of the work that we do intersects placemaking, intersects like the representational image and the power and value that it has, and really kind of driving people to go visit these spaces and be an active participant in them. And yeah, I'm just going to open the floor up for questions.
And I will drop some of these in the chat once some others get speaking. I've dropped some of them already. So feel free to look in the chat for some of the things, as Salam was mentioning then. I was putting them in the chat if you wanted to dive deeper. Some of those Instagram accounts for some of the vendors, like we were talking about Wormworks and Fertile Ground Farms, Magnolia Sunset Markets and things of that nature. But I know Salam will not toot her own horn, but I do want to mention one of the big things with the Fertile Ground Project, that was a $1 million grant. And they were only one of several cities in the United States who received that grant. And as she mentioned, through some of that COVID-19 relief money, they also had some additional grant funding through Bloomberg for some specific projects. And also they had a documentary that was part of it that actually won a Southeastern Emmy. So Salam is an Emmy award winning speaker for us. I know that that doesn't get spoken about enough. So I definitely want to highlight that's a big deal for us and for the city, and to have them. And Salam, I think visuals are so important. Can you speak to that? You know, I think that's the big thing with placemaking, and I'm in some economic development work, and that's something I think economic developers and communicators are just now waking up to, is that we need to focus on place. Why do you think that is so important?
I think especially for me, like as a woman, sometimes when you walk into a room, it can be really overwhelming to present your vision and your ideas around something. But when I'm prepared and I have images, I just feel like the image and the work can kind of speak for itself. You know what I mean? I feel like the power of image has an opportunity to transcend in a way that, you know, sometimes, you know, like even like just now, like I forgot to mention all these other things. But you know, the beauty of an image is that it represents so many different topics. And when you have a rendering, or you have infographics that are easy for people to digest, or, you know, you have diagrams that talk about, you know, how programming can work along a site, I feel like people can really kind of put themselves into it in a way that sometimes speaking can't. And so that's to me like the most important part of the power of image, is being able to have the individual look at it at any point in time, on a website, on social media. You know, you don't have to be there to explain it. You know, if the image is done well, it can speak for itself.
I've got one question in the chat. This is from Mara. She says, I'm a big fan of y'all's work. What is the status of the museum trail phase that goes down Commerce Street? And when will the piece on Museum Drive be complete?
So the status of the museum trail phase that goes down Commerce Street. I'm not really sure which street is Commerce. Are you talking about?
That's over by Howland Mills. That's Commerce Street.
Okay, that Commerce, because we're also on Commerce here. So I was just, there is Commerce Street and there's Commerce Park Drive. Okay, cool. Yeah, you're right. I'm thinking that, you know, I'm going to pull up this museum trail website, because this might be the best way to do it, and just kind of like show my screen really quickly again. Okay, so in the phases part of our website, we have the first phase here that is complete. The second is this Museum District 1 that we're working on currently. And the commerce area that you're referring to, Mara, is down here on the fourth phase, which is downtown. So the way that these phases are proposed is that they're going from the least expensive to the most expensive. So the Bellhaven Heights section was around 2 million. And right now this one is looking to be about 2.5 million. And the the research park one, we're not really sure how much that one's going to cost because this area of the city is really, it's a wetland. So there's going to be a lot of groundwork that's going to need to be done. And then the reason why the downtown section is the most expensive is because it's the most urban part of the trail. So that will require us to create bike lanes, to redo all of our sidewalks, to work with the city in a different capacity. And so that's why that's the fourth phase. So right now, the estimated time for completion for that phase is 2025. And I feel fairly confident that this part of the trail will be completed by spring or summer of 2022. The other complicated part will be getting over Lakeland. I think that there's some funding that's been allocated to build a bridge across Lakeland instead of making people cross the street on the ground. Because that's another big part is Lakeland is such a highway. It's like 4 lanes each way. And then this area will also be kind of like a complicated part. So that's kind of, hope that answers your question in terms of where the Commerce Street section is at.
Hey, it does. Can I ask about the phase 3? When you go through there, are you going through Jamie Boyle Park? Is that the wetlands that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Is that the plan?
Yeah. So you're going to go through the parks, and I think you're going to go through some like wildlife and fisheries area. I think has some land up here too that you're going to have to cut
They
through.
do.
So yeah, so there's like a lot of just like forest, like just, that hasn't really been graded very well, and it's just like not really meant for people to kind of like walk or bike through at this point. So yeah, we're still doing an analysis around what that budget would look like. But it will be a really beautiful part of the trail because it will be like a very wooded part.
How did you pick Jackson to move to, work in, help?
My husband Travis is originally from Dallas, but he grew up in the Jackson suburbs from middle school onward. And so we met at architecture school at the University of Michigan, and he brought me down here. And so now I'm here. But I also really love Jackson because it reminds me, oh my God, it's raining. It reminds me a lot of Detroit in a lot of different ways. I have a really big love for post-industrial spaces. And so this Jackson kind of really reminds me of that in a lot of different ways.
We're glad to have her
So.
here. And Travis, I remember, I guess it was 2015, I can't remember if it was 2015 or 2016, that he had bought the building and it was just a shell. And he invited Paul and I to come look at it at like 10 o'clock on Christmas Eve. And we were like, everybody's with their family at 10 o'clock on Christmas Eve. But it was to see it go from a shell to this has been pretty amazing.
Yeah, Sophie and Paul have really been really great supporters of the work since we've moved here. And it's been really great to see and grow with Sophie and Paul and see how the building is transformed. So I always really love when people have seen the space before it is what it is today, just to understand how much it's transformed. So the Ecoshed was a Southern Pipe Supply supply building. So people they would just like ship pipes out of this building. And it was built in the 1960s, and it has really great bones, but it had been abandoned for about 15 years when we purchased it. And so it's gone through a very great transformation, but luckily, like, this is all concrete. So it's just like an entirely like concrete poured building. So when you walk through the building, concrete is like the only part that's existing and everything else is new construction. But yeah, I'm just super excited for y'all to come by and check it out.
Yeah. Well, are there any further questions before we move on? And if you have one,
probably, sorry, I was going to say, I think that's probably a good segue, Sophie.
yeah.
If you want to talk about what we have planned for November.
Yeah, well, Salam mentioned it, and I think you'll all be excited about this. We've wanted to see each other. We had an event in May, and we are going to be doing that again in November. And that will actually serve as our November chapter meeting. It's going to be Thursday, November 18th. We're going to have a in-person social, and it's also going to be part of our membership drive. So that's November 18th, 5:30 to 7. We'll be sending out more information about this shortly, but we will have light snacks will be provided by Pram Central, and then we'll have a cash bar. One of the things I'm not sure if Salam mentioned or not is that they have a bar within Ecoshed called Space Bar, and so there'll be a cash bar there for everyone. And I think it'll be a great time to get together and connect, since we haven't had a lot of that this past year. And Travis and Salam have graciously said they will make themselves available to give tours so that you can actually see what you've seen on a screen in person next month. And hopefully the weather will be great. As Salam showed us, there's a great atrium outdoor space, there's indoor, there's farm, there's a lot to see. So that'll be really exciting. And because this is part of our annual membership drive, I'm going to turn this over to Jean, who's going to give a little bit of the membership details for you.
Okay, thank you. So some of you know, when we normally meet in person for lunch, we ask you to invite guests to the meeting, and we have a whole RSVP process. So we're going to sort of simplify it for this one. So what we want you to do is we want you to come to the November social / membership drive / tour, and invite as many PR friends as you know who may not be Pram Central members. You can just share the meeting email that you get announcement, and they can RSVP just like you are RSVP for the meeting. And they'll just RSVP as a guest, kind of like we used to do when we met for our luncheons. And the first 25 people who arrive at the event who have RSVP'd, and this could be either yourself or the guests you've invited, will get a drink ticket. So the first 25 people who show up who have RSVP'd. So it's important to RSVP. We really want to get an idea of how many people are going to come, and we want lots of people to come. And then for every guest who you invite who attends, and I guess they have to have RSVP, but I'll hammer out that detail. Then you will get it, be entered into a raffle for each person. You'll get a ticket for each person for a $100 prize. So the more people you invite who come, RSVP, the more tickets you'll get in that raffle. And then for any guests who joined before December 1st, sorry, they will be entered into a raffle to get a free membership for 2022. So we'll have door prizes for members and guests who have RSVP'd. And so again, the theme is RSVP, invite lots of people, you could win prizes, and it'll be fun. That's it.
Yeah. And so all that info, the RSVP, the announcement, that'll be looking for that, I guess, around the first week of November. We'll get that out to you. So I'm excited about that. That's going to be great. One important bit of housekeeping, or that's not really not housekeeping, it's important chapter business. Bill Moak, our president-elect, is going to recognize our Lantern Award winners from the SBRF conference earlier this month. So Bill, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, it was really a great conference down on the Gulf Coast at Panama City Beach, and we our club really shone during that event. And I count 18 awards that our Pram Central members took home, and the Mississippi Department of Education team kept having to get up time and time again to get an award. And by my count, it's 7. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, including a best of category award. And Entergy had 6 awards, and others who won were the Department of Archives and History, the Mississippi Department of Transportation, Jackson Academy, Farm Families of Mississippi, and the Department of Human Services. So if y'all were one of these, raise your hand, raise your virtual hand in reactions or whatever your real hand. But it was really, really incredible to see the wonderful work that was done by all of you guys. And as a Pram Central member, it made me very proud, and everybody else who was there representing our chapter.
Yeah, congratulations, everybody. That's great. That's great. Yeah, that's so for those who may not be familiar, Salam, that's a regional organization, Southern Public Relations Federation. So that's that represents a number of southeastern states. So
Did I get those numbers right, Pete and Mara? For the number of awards y'all got?
Yeah.
You're muted.
Yeah, I was
Mara.
gonna say, ask Gene.
You did for Entergy.
Yeah. It was wonderful.
so yeah, this is that talent that we have in Pram Central. And that's what we also need to recognize with the Outstanding Practitioner Awards. So be on the lookout for that email to nominate some members for Practitioner Awards. I think that might be all for today, unless anybody else has anything else. I want to thank Salam and Travis for an excellent presentation. It was fascinating because I've seen bits and pieces of that over the past couple of years. And I had no idea that it was all part of, this one, creative team. So that's really cool. So, okay. Having said all that, we will meet again in person in November. So that's going to be really exciting. And I'm also optimistic that 2022 will be a bit of a return to some of our old in-person traditions. So with that, I hope you all have a great rest of the week. And yeah, just be well. Good to see everybody.